So Amal mentioned 3 teams he thinks can win a championship, and that is Georgia, Ohio State, and Michigan. What's fascinating about Michigan, boys, is nobody saw this coming. The expectations when Harbaugh got there were through the roof. By the time the COVID-shortened season ended, the expectations, as Michael Jordan would say, the floor is the ceiling, or whatever that means. You understand, there were no expectations because they go 2-4 COVID. Harbaugh's about to get fired. He takes a reduced salary, incentive laden. After 2020, he's 0-5 against Ohio State, which is a dagger. Amal, you know this. He's 3-3 against little brother in Michigan State. Just a freaking disaster for Michigan. Then what happens? All of a sudden, he tore his staff apart. He got the incentive-laden contract, reduced salary, and then 2021, his team in Michigan comes in unranked. Next thing you know, Big Ten champs, they beat Ohio State for the first time. They're 12-2. They lose to Georgia in the college football playoff. Everything's good. They finished the season number 3 overall in the country. That's 2021 after Harbaugh's about to get fired. 2022 rolls around, 12-0. 45-23 beatdown of Ohio State at Ohio State. They beat Purdue in the Big Ten championship game, win another Big Ten title. They lost to TCU 51-45 in the national semis, okay? Here's the deal. This year's team, they're number 2. They've got the dynamic trio of J.J. McCarthy, whatever you think of them, Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum, star power, depth, experience. The non-conference, again, is simple. Yes, Harbaugh suspended for the first 3. Doesn't matter. They're not playing anybody. And they're all at home. As a matter of fact, the first 4 games of Michigan's schedule at home. It's a cakewalk. This is the year. Before I let you launch into why you like Michigan, the bottom line when it comes to Harbaugh, 21 and 22 have been great, but he's 1-6 in bowls. He's 0-2 in the college football semis. On the national stage, the facts are Jim Harbaugh struggles. Amal Shaw.
Great point about the bowl record. I didn't realize Harbaugh's 1-6. I was just looking right now, just the Citrus Bowl win his first year. By the way, first of all, if I'm Harbaugh based on the schedule, why not just take a vacation down to Turks and Caicos? Once the season ramps up, you're not going to be able to do anything. I mean, they could literally, we could pull somebody out of the stands in Ann Arbor and they can win these first 4 games. They just need to show up. You look at this team, they are loaded. The talent on this team is incredible. You know, Patrick, people look at J.J. McCarthy, former 5-star recruit at quarterback, dual threat. Look, I'm not as high on him as other people are. McCarthy, to me, is not even in their top 3 offensive players. I would go Blake Corum. Loveland Colston at tight end is going to be an absolute dude. He's only a sophomore. This guy's going to be a superstar. And then, of course, Donovan Edwards behind him. They've got talent everywhere. On the defensive side of the ball, Will Johnson's going to be a superstar as well if he's not already. The schedule works out extremely well. They're at Minnesota and at Nebraska, then at Minnesota. They have the game at Penn State. And then, of course, they have Ohio State at home. They've got to win the game against the Buckeyes. And I'll tell you what, if both teams come in at 11-0, Patrick, I think one of those teams can suffer a loss and still make the college football playoff. But the reason why I believe, despite giving up 9 guys to the NFL draft last year for Michigan, this team is the second favorite, in my opinion, to win the national title. They've got the experience. They've got the talent across the board. They've got just the ability defensively. And then and one thing you and Dustin like to make fun of me for, which is accurate, though, is they've got the schedule. The schedule works out extremely well. They have done well against Penn State, even though they got to go to State College and they play the Nittany Lions and the Buckeyes twice in 3 weeks. This is a great opportunity. The best chance, in my opinion, since '97 for Michigan to win a national title.
I think it's an easier schedule than Georgia.
No, I know, because they have Penn State and Ohio State. Georgia doesn't even have
That's fair.
Anybody comparable like this. Penn State would beat Tennessee by 10 points.
That's fair. That's fair. Georgia's schedule is a cakewalk, but the bigger picture when it comes to Michigan, and I want to, kind of bring some context to what we're talking about here. This is a program you hear of because the maize and blue, the unis are freaking sweet. Dustin Sweetelson growing up outside of New York, he just loved that Block M. He loved the maize. He loved the blue, and he bought into all the hype. I bought into it. I grew up in a state where you sat on one side of the lunchroom because you were wearing maize and blue, and then you sat on the other side of the lunchroom because you're wearing green and white, and then you battled like Grease and John Travolta in the middle of it. Nah, I'm just playing.
Was Sandy there?
Oh, Sandy.
I owned Michigan Nikes. I owned Charles Woodson style Nikes. They were maize and blue, and I think I'll find them and send them to you. They were maybe the sweetest shoes I've ever owned.
Big guy out here thinking he's Tim Bianca-Patuca. Here's the point about Michigan.
I was more of a Tyrone Wheatley guy, if we're being honest.
They never won anything with Bo Schembechler. Those are facts. They won one national championship in 97, I think since 48, and that was a split national championship. The consistency of Bo in winning games was there. The big stage was never his expertise, and that brings me to Harbaugh. Harbaugh's a disaster on a big stage. You mentioned the first bowl win. I think it was against South Carolina. Remember, it's the most famous hit in the history of college football as far as I'm concerned. It's Jadeveon Clowney jumping in the backfield and absolutely blowing up a human being to the point where his helmet went straight up in the air. How is that even possible? It's the most athletically ridiculous thing we've ever seen on a football field. That dude was Jadeveon Clowney. Don't sleep. However, bottom line, 1-6 for Harbaugh and Bulls. Dude just struggles in a big spot. Constantly cratered when he had better talent against Michigan State. I mentioned the 0-5 start against Ohio State. That's talent v. talent. Comes down to coaching. Now, the last 2 years have been a bit of a reversal, which is great. But then I mentioned, got beat by Georgia 2 years ago. Okay, Dustin Sweetelson, that's fine. Georgia on his way dynastically, potentially. How about getting beat by TCU? Can't happen.
Nope.
I don't care how magical that carpet ride was last year for Texas Christian University. You're freaking Michigan. You don't get beat 51-45, and frankly, you don't give up 51 points if you're Michigan. So, Dustin, you want to say something, but that is my point. Before you put Michigan in that threesome, and I think a lot of my friends listening will appreciate what Amal Shaw did because he's biased, but he took his bias away, and he said Michigan deserves to be in the threesome. Jim Harbaugh is so freaking overrated. Give me his brother, John.
His stubbornness, I believe, is what will do in his tenure at Michigan and why they will never get over the hump. You see, the stubbornness to continue to run what they call a pro-style offense, which is not a pro-style offense anymore because the professionals all have some version of the spread elements mixed in, which just puts your quarterback in more advantageous positions to make plays through the air. The pro-style offense makes it harder in big moments to make throws when they matter. So J.J. McCarthy, who I feel like I've been really hard on this show, but I'm less hard on him and more hard on the system he plays in because I think because of this system where it's difficult and the sets that they're going to run, more of a run-based offense, there are going to be one or two moments where he's going to have to make throws to beat an opponent. And I believe this system is going to hold him back from being put in the proper position to make easier throws. You'll see other quarterbacks who run spread offenses have easy outs, have good number 2 and 3 options. This system doesn't have that. And that is my biggest issue with this team. It could come at Penn State. It could come when they host Ohio State. It could even come if somehow Michigan State steps up for one random game against their biggest rival and wants to mess things up for them. We've seen it happen with Auburn and Alabama when Auburn stinks and they mess things up for Alabama. I think Jim Harbaugh's stubbornness to not adopt more spread principles, to run this pro-style offense, will have it where J.J. McCarthy needs to make a throw to win a game, and it will be too hard to do it, and it's too much pressure on a quarterback, and that will be the issue for Michigan this year. And Penn State is the one where I'm highlighting where I think it happens.
Amal, you want to close it out?
Yeah, can't really argue that much. I mean, a little bit more of a spread situation nowadays than necessarily a pro set, but still, I agree with what he said. Remember, J.J. McCarthy threw not one, but 2 pick sixes in the game against TCU. It's going to come down to quarterback play. Can they deliver when they need it most against Penn State, November 11th and November 25th in Ann Arbor?
There it is. Going to be fascinating. Penn State, Ohio State, both on the sched towards the end of the year. At Penn State, at Maryland, host Ohio State.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.